Bhakti, bro. Look at his Bhakti.
Hi. Pleasure to see you as well. Hey there, how you
I'm not
doing?
shaking your hand, bro. You're a fucking piece of shit, man.
Why is that, sir?
You fucked up the entire country. You got our buddy over there.
Yeah, but how did I mess up this country?
Can anybody afford a home in this day? They're charging people carbon tax. You got 9 V8s here idling for 30 minutes. Your carbon footprint is increasing. We're getting charged for what?
You know what we're doing?
It's not stopping. No,
we're putting a price on pollution,
right?
And we're returning it to families like yours.
I don't think so. You're sending it over to Ukraine, right?
No.
Yeah. You send it over to the guy that you were with that slaughtered his own country.
You've been listening to Putin, have you?
Putin? No. Definitely don't listen to your propaganda.
Oh my goodness. We're not going to watch that a second time because it might make people retch before we start this interview. I think I'm going to have the guy who shot that video on at some point next week. We'll see. I think it's lined up and borderline confirmed, but we're going to see. Can you believe it? Just like the go-to when faced with something you don't like, you must be listening to that Russian propaganda. And so the guy says to him, "I'm not shaking your hand. You're an effing piece of SH." And he says, "Why? You've destroyed the country." Trudeau was handling it relatively well for a little bit. How have I done that? Nobody can afford a home. You're taxing carbon while you have 7 of your SUVs and your security idling while you're flying to Davos to lecture the world on the climate crisis. And Trudeau says, "You know what I'm doing with all of that? We're taxing pollution and we're giving it back to you." What in the name of sweet holy hell are you talking about, Trudeau? You're not taxing pollution and giving the money back to the people that you're taxing. I mean, you're giving me 10 cents on the dollar that you've taken from me back to me? That's one hell of an investment. And you're not even taxing pollution. You're outsourcing the pollution. Look, I'm trying to start the show without having to talk about the international horror that we're witnessing today because I don't want to talk about it. We'll talk about it tomorrow. And we'll try to digest, the abject evil that can exist in this world, and the proper, useful political responses to atrocities. Twitter is what's the word? It's not a foul. It's not running afoul, but it's awash with hot takes, people fighting, all this stuff. But yeah, I figure we can always just start with a Trudeau being a jackaninny. Watching too much Russian propaganda. Oh yeah, they're taxing pollution in Canada by outsourcing pollution to China, India. They're cutting off pollution here so that we can't make our own natural energy, so that we're forced to buy oil and gas from tyrannical Russian oligarchs or Venezuelan overlords or Iranian whatever. Yeah, we're outsourcing. We're taxing pollution, all right. You're enriching the very same people you purport to claim are evil, while crippling the people that you were elected to represent. Okay. With that said, totally unrelated to the show for today. I think a lot of people don't know about this story, but it's sort of starting to make the news a little bit now. You might remember having heard some elements of this story. You know what? Even before I do that, let me make sure that we are simultaneously live across all platforms. For those of you who don't know, yes, we are. We stream on YouTube, Rumble, and vivabarneslaw.locals.com. We're going to end on YouTube sooner than later with this interview because I'm exclusive with Rumble, and I like to have the discussions where we can have the discussions without enriching the censors. They'll get the leftover replay tomorrow, but the live interview will be on Rumble. And then I don't know that there's going to be an after show Q&A on Locals, but anybody who wants to watch on vivabarneslaw.locals.com, you can go look right there. The link is right there. Just notice Viva's clock says 4:03. What the heck? Son of a... Oh, God, I'll fix it later. That's stupid. I didn't do anything. I don't know why that clock goes 1 hour bad. All right, so the story that you may not have heard of. A Yale student named Saif Khan, wrongly accused of sexual aggression. Criminally charged, found not guilty, and then nonetheless, Yale University goes kangaroo court, virtue signaling cancellation on a student who was wrongly accused, had a trial, evidence adduced that proved it did not just prove not guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It basically proved innocence. We'll get to it. And then, notwithstanding a finding of not guilty in the criminal court, Yale makes his life a living hell, and we're going to get into that. Then he sought to sue Yale and his wrongful accuser for defamation, and was found to was effectively prevented from doing so for legal reasons, which Saif is going to explain, and has now been authorized by the courts to sue both Yale and his wrongful accuser for defamation for the horror that they turned his life into over the course of several years. That's the 30,000-foot overview. Saif has an amazing story. Afghan refugee given a scholarship by Yale. We'll get into all of it because I do have a lot of questions about Saif's childhood before we get into the experience that he had. This is back in 2018 at like the crest of #MeToo. Let us do this now. Saif, I'm bringing you in. 3, 2, 1. Sir, you're well. I say you're still sporting the Yale sweater. So, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you? Good evening to you and to your audience.
Well, this is going to be. I think some people are going to know of this story. Others are not, and they're going to be flabbergasted. We're going to get into all this because there's some nuance that you're going to flesh out that I'm going to ask you about. There's some stuff that you can't discuss. I'll probably invariably ask too many questions. You'll let me know what you can and cannot answer.
I like it that way.
Let me ask you this. Okay, first of all, who are you? I mean, I'm going to get into your childhood because I have questions, but who are you?
Sure. So, I mean, it's a continuous dynamic question of who we are. We change, and I would actually not like myself if 5 years from now I'm the same kid around the block. So it's a continuously evolving thing where I'm constantly learning, improving, and that's one part, I guess, that Yale and really anybody can never take away from me. I am always going to be me. I'm always going to be pushing. Every day, at least in the recent past, every day there's Chandler.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chandler. And so every day I wake up, I read for 5-6 hours, and I then spend another 5-6 hours thinking about what I just read. And so I'm precocious. I'm curious. At the end of the day, I just love learning. And that's what brought me to America. While my start, as you pointed out, was in suboptimal conditions. Started off in a refugee camp, crossed the border from Afghanistan into Pakistan when my parents and so on escaped the civil war and the Taliban in the early 90s. I'm 30 years old, for those who don't know. I spent about 16 years in the camp and towns nearby and 2 years in UAE and the rest in America.
Okay, so hold on. Back this up all the way. Your parents are born where?
Yeah, so I'll go pretty far. My last name is Khan, or Khan for the American palate. And so it's an earned title that you essentially have to be a conqueror. And so my grandfather and his father earned the title because they defended some castle from the barbarians who invaded the village. So that's how I ended up with the Khan, because my forefathers did. And so, but my grandfather went from the village in Katawaz, Paktika, to Kabul in 70s, early 80s or so, early 70s, and he was poor. He even though his childhood was, with this whole bravery and so on, he started his own business. He took a tray, put candy on it, tied a rope to one end, slung the rope over his shoulders and tied it to the other end, and just started selling candy on the street. And then ended up making a killing, buying and selling. And he was uneducated. He never went to school. My mom has zero schooling, didn't go to any even kindergarten. My dad has a bit of schooling, I think grade 10. And so my parents were largely born and raised around Kabul. And in the early 90s, my dad and his dad, they had been buying and selling dishware and crockery basically China ware. And a mistake that my grandpa had made was he bought a lot of wine glasses, and because he couldn't read, he thought it was juice. And so he was like, "Oh, look at this fantastic design! There's like a neck, and there's a whole cup." And so he bought a ton of those to sell them in Kabul. And during the Civil War, the Taliban saw it and accused him of bootlegging and helping people drink alcohol, which is a crime and they're punishable. And so they sent us letters saying, "By morning, if we see anybody in this house, we're going to kill you." And so in the dead of night, they just escaped and crossed over the border, and that's where I was born.
This is what your parents did. They say
Right.
we're gonna kill anybody in this house, and
Right.
they pack up everything they have,
Right.
and they pack up everything they can and leave the rest,
Right, right,
and end up in a refugee camp.
right.
In where was the refugee camp again?
Yeah, so it was across the border into Pakistan. It was designed, built, and supported by the UNHCR, the United
United
Nations
Nations.
High
Okay.
Commission for Refugees. Yeah.
You're born into a refugee camp,
Well, I don't remember, but that's what people tell me.
but you were raised in a refugee camp.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, like one of my earliest memories is just walking outside, because I was a curious kid. My earliest memory was just every day going out in the same direction and trying to walk just a little bit further, however far my little legs could take me, to see the end of the world. And so when I would get tired, I'd point to a tree, like, okay, it's at least that big. It's at least that far. And so, I mean, I had no idea of how big the world is. And like, it was also hard to articulate it, but it's just the exploration. Um,
I mean, what age were you when you left the refugee camp?
I think like about four-ish or so.
Okay, so
So my dad and mom, they're generally pretty smart, so they were able to get out and change circumstances and seek better life elsewhere.
I mean, what does for those who don't know, like I picture a refugee camp and I'm thinking like from the Lord of War, something in the middle of the desert and it has fences around it. Is it built up structure? Is it tents? What does your
It's a lot of tents and you know folks coming in to give you polio shots and other vaccines and just distribution of food. But my memory of early childhood is surprisingly non-existent, and there's a good chance that I've like suppressed a ton of memories up until like age 8. So I actually, to a significant degree, don't recall my early childhood.
Okay, that's fascinating. And do you have pictures of this? I mean, it almost feels like a stupid question.
Um,
How do you get pictures of you in a refugee camp or your family?
I mean, I think folks had some. Like I don't have any on me right now, but
No, no, no. I'm just trying to like. It's such a foreign concept as to what is in.
yeah,
All the food has to be administered given from outside. There's no stores. There's no.
right.
It's kickball and survival. That's it.
Right, and it's largely temporary. And my parents, being smart enough, were able to start their own business and get out of there and go to the local town. Have a slightly more bigger, better upgrade. Have
Okay.
amenities like air conditioner. And like fans. For whatever amount of electricity that used to be there, because there's a rolling blackouts that happen, so you only get electricity for a certain number of hours a day, and it's far closer to poverty and less danger because then it would defeat the point of it being a refuge because so it's Afghanistan and poverty minus the danger.
Okay, interesting. And so they eventually they make their way out to.
Right.
Is it to Pakistan or to Afghanistan?
So they were in Pakistan, and until age 16-ish, we were around there, and that's largely where I got my early education. However, most of my early education was me teaching myself. One of my favorite things to do was to go to the bakery as much as I could because the bakery, they would give you the bread with newspapers under it so you could hold it. And the newspapers were my source of reading. And what was extra funny was, a lot of the unsold stuff from the West get then, recycled in the East. And so I would be reading about Nixon resigning in the 90s because it's like old newspapers that just never got sold or like, other stock. And so, and I barely understood the English. So I was like trying to make sense of things. And so it just, one thing that was great about the regular schooling was that they did teach us ABCs, but nobody spoke English. And so I was able to, form words and like really struggle with like what does this thing mean. And so I was incredibly lucky to also have a computer around, in my early childhood, like 8, 9 years old or so. Very dusty, hands me down sort of computer, but it was there. And so the more I got acquainted with technology, the better my English got. And the better my English got, the more I was able to play around with tech. I had, in fact, a Game Boy too that was, one of those recycled boys that people throw away. And so the battery didn't work and like games wouldn't save. And so, but I had a ton of fun.
Do you have siblings or no siblings?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, but largely I don't talk about it in the media so much. But one thing I could say is that uh, despite my harrowing experience with Yale, I ended up bringing one over to NYU, and the youngest is now at Harvard. And so I've been, uh, despite the challenges, I've you know been promoting the education within my family and within my friend circles.
Okay, you glitched out for a second there. Did you say one of them you brought over to Harvard as well?
Yeah, yep.
So
He's
you
there right now.
you learned nothing from your experience at Yale, bada bing, bada boom. I'm joking. Okay, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to end this on YouTube. It changes nothing from our end, but we're going to get into some stuff now, and I want to end it on YouTube. So everybody get your butts over to Rumble if you're so inclined, and I'm going to end it on YouTube in 3, 2, 1. Okay, you're 15, 16, and clearly, let's say like intelligent, or you are clearly intelligent, but also able to teach yourself in a way that some other people may not have the motivation. How does it happen that you end up at Yale? Do I understand you got a
Yeah,
scholarship? I mean, how the heck does that happen?
yeah. So there's like a lot of like little step by step stuff. Like, well, how do you do this thing? And there's the abstract high level stuff. Like, so how do you connect the small steps with the abstract? And what was fascinating was on the abstract level, I'm in the UAE, so that my last 2 years of high school were in the UAE. I got an international experience, and this idea of like, oh, people go to college, like it's foreign because like my mom, has no schooling. My dad has a grade 10 or so, and this is around the financial crisis, or a few years after, and and my senior year of high school, I'm realizing, what do I do? And I don't want to go work at my dad's shop. And so I have to figure out like, what do I do? And so the idea of like, oh, I guess people my age go to college and there's some such a thing as a scholarship. So in the abstract hyper optimize it. Well, are there like really, really good colleges? Because they have to be comparable. And in that contrast, what I ended up doing was I made an Excel sheet. So I found like online lists where there was a list of like 6,400 ish, U.S. colleges. I put out sheet one, and then I put colleges, in Germany, and colleges in the UK and China and Korea, and then in the small steps, and also reading online like blogs and like people are talking about it. And generally, the internet is dominated by English, and so then I'm comparing like, okay, well, how many years would it relatively take me to pick up Mandarin or German? And I somewhat knew English. So and then just comparing it on the abstract level of like, well, America just seems to be the land of opportunity. And there's just so much. And and then dwindling down the list based on simple logistical things like, well, this college specifically says we have no scholarships. Well, I just can't attend. And so I truncated the list down to about 20-ish colleges, and they were only the colleges that provide a scholarship to need-based anyone across the world. Um, and it just happened to overlap heavily with the Ivy League. I guess they have the endowments to support these endeavors. And then it was connecting when I honed in on the goal level of like, well, I guess I'm targeting this. Then it's like, well, what do they need? What hoops do I have to jump through? Because this is, matchmaking. This is dating. They want something, I want something. And so what do I need to give them? And so then I just made a list of like, I guess they need SAT, they need this, they TOEFL, they need, these grades, and grades I couldn't do much about because I already had perfect grades at that point. Um, yeah, and then minor things like, oh, they need me to pay on the Common App per individual school. So I had to find somebody with a credit card. I had about $900 saved up from work that I used to do in the summer, and so I gave cash to a guy that I found that had a credit card so that I could use his. And then it was also like just abstract challenges like, is this a scam? And then I was like, this seems relatively correct. Just applying critical thinking. Like, hey, I'm giving a website money. How do I even know that they're gonna take me to a different country? Like, this feels like you're entering the realm of like, this is a foreign country. What is this deal that we're doing? Right? Like, it's a transaction of sorts. And then it's like, okay, well, I have 2.5 months. Okay, I got this test. I can do this. I can study for 4 weeks. I got this other test. I'll do it 2 weeks there. I got 2 weeks to write an essay. And then I just send out the applications. And so there was a lot of these intricate minor steps, even within each, nested within. If you could imagine like a concatenated list of like achieve goal of getting to college. And so I just kept doing the work, and I got on a wait list.
And you're 18 at this time, give or take.
17 and a half-ish.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's an amazing. Well, I mean, it's an amazing thing. Like some people's initiative versus other people, and no judgment. Just like some people would probably be happier playing video games than figuring out how to escape.
Well,
Okay.
So this was a video game to me, right? Because like I have this nature to me where I am playful. I'm curious, and I gamify a task, and I'm like, hey, am I able to achieve this thing? And so the gamification of like, can I do this college thing really, really well? And it makes it more fun rather than, doing tasks.
So you apply. You're in the United Arab Emirates at this point in time.
Right.
Your dad owns. Can I ask what type of shop your dad owns?
Sure. So he's still doing business of like plates and kitchenware stuff. Yeah.
And your mom is working with him, or is she?
No,
she's at home.
She's at home taking care of kids, and yeah.
So you are not. They know, I presume, that you're applying to some American university for a scholarship.
Right.
Now I'm dying to know what happens the moment you get the confirmation that you've gotten a scholarship to Yale.
Right. I guess just lots of shock. Like, well, what does that mean? And just it takes a while for it to transpire to take it in. Like, wait, what do you mean? So you're saying those guys are going to buy your plane ticket? And I'm like, yeah, here's the ticket. They sent it. They're gonna give you a visa. They're going to, pay for your education. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I guess this is the deal, right? Like,
I got a stupid technical question. Does the acceptance come by way of, are you on email, or does it come by way of like physical letter in the mail?
So the way I got it was by phone call first. So there were quite a number of things that occurred midway too. And one of the propositions that Yale actually did was they called me saying, hey, look, we think you're a diamond in the rough. You have like amazing grades. You have like amazing other stuff. You just don't have normal schooling whatsoever. Like, I just didn't have a good teacher until I got to Yale. Right? And so they were like, hey, we think you should go to Hotchkiss, which is a private boarding school, Northwest Connecticut. Why don't you go there for a year? Because, look, when you're here at Yale, a lot of your peers, they already know everything. They're only going to be focusing on classes. well, you're going to be acclimating to America. You're going to be getting a phone and and a bank account, and I didn't know how to use a fork and knife, and so there's just a lot of assimilation and catching up on layers of existence that others wouldn't have issues with. I had never slept on a raised bed. It's like these small things add up. And so they were like, why don't you cushion your progress by going to this boarding school for a year? Which I'm like, sure, more schooling, is it free? And they're like, yeah, sure, of course. And so they had an alum pay for that. And so I did that for a year first.
That's incredible. I mean, it's so incredible. They send you a ticket. You go to, you said Connecticut was where Hodgkins was?
Right.
And so how much, I mean, I got to ask the questions. How much money do they give you? Like, yeah, you're like 20,000 a year. It goes into a bank account. You get a card, and you have to ration all this. You're not getting money from anywhere else.
So a lot of the accounting was just direct, meaning tuition, housing, food. It just comes in, goes out immediately to the school.
Okay.
And I think I had pocket money of about, I don't know, 700, $800 a semester. So about 4 months, 700, $8, and that's what I would stretch. Yeah, so like,
That's
but
amazing.
I mean, like, yeah, things were taken care of in general, and so I just had to be, I guess, a good student.
And so you go from United Arab Emirates. Your parents say, "So long, son." You get on a plane alone. You land here or there, and then
Yeah.
you go to what? Okay, so what's that like landing in America for the first time ever?
Well, so I prepared. So I watched the Friends show from the 90s.
You watched Coming to America. That's going to be probably.
So there was quite a number of. I watched Coming to America 2 years later. Somebody pointed out to me. I guess largely just getting connected to content of like, hey, you should watch this. Is an endeavor in itself. Like you're just not aware of what's out there. It's an unknown unknown, and so yeah, I just watched Friends to get the Mandarin down because a lot of my English was book nerd English. So I would say things like rendezvous, and somebody would stop me. You mean rendezvous? I'm like, yep, thank you. Burned into my memory, and so I would fix a lot of these, enunciation issues or wrong usage of certain words because I was not following the colloquial zeitgeist with everybody else. I was just vibing on my own plane the whole time, right? And so, yeah, it felt surprisingly normal when I landed because it just seemed like, yeah, I've practiced this, I've simulated this, and it just was normal.
Okay, very cool. So the year in you said it was Hodgkins.
Hotchkiss. It's the feeder school that used to be a feeder school for Yale, where the boys from Manhattan would go to a boarding school and then to Yale.
Now I've got to ask this question also. I'm very nosy. I apologize. I
Go for it.
presume that growing up in UAE, alcohol is still taboo.
Right.
You now come to America where alcohol in university is not only not taboo, it's almost a prerequisite. Do you avoid alcohol, or do you discover alcohol?
I had it on the first plane right on, and it's just curiosity. Like again, I will test, I will try, right? Like it's just like, well, what does it do? And so, um, and then on campus, I had noticed, the numbing effects. And so on campus, I started taking around with me ping pong balls in my pocket to parties. And so I would be the weirdo who would, take a sip and then throw a ping pong ball. So I'm generally very athletic, and so I have good eye coordination and hand-eye coordination. And so I'd catch the ball, and then I would like take another sip and like mentally make a graph of like where am I at, like how much am I enjoying it, and how is my, you know, how do I feel about it? How good am I, in judging my capacity, and then once or twice I pushed the rightward corner where like you just drink too much, and then I was like, okay, got it. That's a bad point. And so then I was like, then I graphed out like the downward slopes that where your liver is, digesting it, and then you're getting sober, I guess. And so then just calculating how long it takes to stay at the perfect buzz and how much do you replenish. It's like, so I ran these experiments.
It's amazing. This reminds me when we were kids, and my brother in high school they had to do a science experiment, and his science experiment was he had a ruler. His friend would hold a ruler. He would pinch it, and his friend would drop it. He would pinch it, and then he would take a shot, and then see how alcohol impacted his. Because you could measure when you pinch it, like
Right.
5 millimeters. He got in big trouble for running this experiment in high school. I shouldn't have told that story. Damn it. I'm joking. So okay, so that's fascinating. You could easily write a book about all of this, but we're going to get to the chapter of the book that is the next horrendous. I'll call it horrendous chapter of your life. After the first year I'm going to mispronounce it. It's stuck in Hodgkin's in my brain. You get to Yale now for your degree. What are you studying at Yale?
Yeah, so I picked up cognitive neuroscience. Largely, I was making my own degree, and so I was just having the department agree to it. I'm like, hey, this makes sense, and they're like, I guess yeah, if you put it that way, it does. I wasn't following a normal major where people have like a checklist of classes to take to graduate in a specific major. Um, Again, my curiosity tends to be more, I guess, pure, for a lack of better phrase. Um, if somebody took me into a freshman class, intro to cognitive science, and dragged me in, and the professor, one of the first things he says is, like, "There's a piece of the universe that has given itself a name," and I'm like, "It's the brain," and I was just fascinated by the meta aspect of thinking. Like, well, how do we think? Like, wait, what's going on? Who am I? Who are we? And what does it mean to actually think? And what does it mean to have knowledge? Like, we understand knowledge, but like, what does it mean for you to possess it and to truly know it? And there's like layers to how well you know it. And then same applies to memory and other cognitive faculties. And so I ended up just one thing I love about Yale, and I recommend to anybody going to a liberal arts experience, is to just take classes from everything. And so I would take classes from, physics, from biology, from neurobiology, behavioral economics, law, computer science, psychology, and philosophy, and just tackle from every angle, what does it mean to think? And children. I took child development psychology. I took primate, related classes, and so just tackling it from every angle. Like, what does that mean?
And this is within the context of a Bachelor of Arts.
Right.
Okay. All right. That means look, you're
Bachelor of Science, but sure. Yeah.
okay. No, the same. Actually, that's
Yeah.
more accurate. Yeah, it's interesting. Clearly, have a very unique mind and a way of approaching the world. And now let's get into this. Let's get into the beginning of this. I mean, you're going to have to give us the context. You get accused of rape. I understand. I know I know the details. It's at a Halloween party, but first things first. Is this in your first year of university? First year
No,
of Yale?
so this is my senior year, and to give you better context of who I was in the senior year, or at the very least in the eyes of the bubble that we were in, I was notorious. Notorious in the sense that I didn't like uh, 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 the weird socialization that occurred that quite often, where you would forcefully, stay quiet just because that's what everybody else expected you to stay quiet. I blanked on one of my. He was asking me, a freshman experience that was very eye opening to me, and I remember the person's name right now, Rick Santorum. He was a candidate in 2012, and he came over to speak. And so, I don't have any political involvement, or I don't fit a camp in America, if anybody wants to know. But one thing that my culture and my background and my father and my grandfather has imbued within me is respect. And when Rick Santorum was talking, people were booing and yelling and loudly and just hissing, and it more than like an amount of disagreement. It was just utter sheer disrespect. And it was, in my mind, I'm like shocked, like what's going on? I thought like the guy farted or something, or like did I miss something? Like I thought that he, just did something so big where like I was like, did I miss something? What's going on? And so that cognitive dissonance that I was feeling was because, like, look, freshman year, I had very high, expectations of my colleagues, and because they are smart people, they're really good test takers, and they utilize the English language with such precision, that I had never seen myself, and they had a lot of other intelligent aspects, but they became so tribalistic, just like the tribes in Afghanistan. And I was like, I thought we were above this. Because, like, here I am in a very, very diverse place where we have folks from everywhere, and they're acting like, the monolithic single ethnicity folks in Afghanistan, like areas. And so it was just disrespectful to a significant degree. And then I started noticing this all over campus. And so I didn't shut up. And I was like, hey, this is wrong. That's wrong. And I became notorious because people couldn't say much to me for stupid reasons. And the stupid reasons was like, oh, he's the refugee kid. He doesn't know better. And I was like, no, I'm just calling it out. Argue with me on the content of things. Forget that. Forget where I'm from. I don't care about identity stuff related to me. Focus and talk to me about these particular issues in these ways. And so I was one of the founders and moderators for Overheard at Yale, which was a gossip group for campus. And I actively stopped a lot of student movements that were abusive and just plain wrong. And so, stupid me, I come with a bit of naivety where I was like just standing up for things, not realizing that I was conducting politics.
No, you,
I didn't.
you're the goody two shoes, overachieving. Your grades are probably very good as well at Yale. Stifling, stifling the woke cancel mob that wants to shout people down. And who the hell are
Right.
you to do this? This is not how it works here. Okay, that's
Right.
interesting
And
context.
yeah, I mean, like, and one thing I ending up realizing was that a lot of folks that wanted to associate with me based on my background were seeing me as a token, somebody to tell their parents that, hey, I'm friends with an Afghan. And I was like, no, we're friends because we're friends, buddy, not because like let's throw that thing out of the way. Like it's just weird to be seen in that way. Like yeah, it's cool. Like oh, here's stories and like we can like talk about like our upbringings, but it's like you're only seeing me through that specific lens, and it was jarring. It felt icky to me.
Okay. You glitched out there for a second.
Yeah,
The internet is not. There's a bit of an internet issue problem, but so okay. So, but all that to say, so this happens your senior year. Your grades are good. Like you're succeeding and achieving, and you're not having any issues at Yale at any point during your tenure there.
and I guess another part that I was notorious with was I was promiscuous. I was, major slut, and so not a crime to me. I was having a lot of fun. Like college to me was a lot of fun, and so I even had an open relationship, long distance girlfriend, and I was just sleeping around left and right. Like just I honestly lost count at college, and that also ended up just rubbing a lot of men di- like badly at Yale. Like a lot of liberal men would just like, why would you ask that girl out? How would you know that she's interested? And I'm like, well, if she's not, she'll say no. And like, I'm like, hi, okay, have a good day. Like I'm, proposing this question to a person like, hey, want to hang out? Want to go back to my room? Or like, hey, want to do this? And the guys are like, but you don't even know her name. I'm like, yeah, but like, people say yes. And so, and if they say no, well, have a good day. Take care. And so, um, a lot of folks, I guess, just didn't like that part. And my senior year, I was part of a secret society, a Jewish one. I was part of two of them.
Dude, first of all, as anybody who knows me, they know what I'm thinking. You're breaking two rules here. You're not keeping your schmeckel in your pants, and you're joining secret societies. This is how problems start. As well, it's interesting. So, like, you're discovering America in the most American Pie type sense. Like,
Right.
you're discovering alcohol and sex, and you're coming from a repressive United Arab Emirates, Afghanistan, born in, to holy cows, this is what freedom for good and for bad. This is what it can lead to. So
Right.
you're promiscuous, which I imagine is going to piss off some of the girls who might not be interested in, who might not have thought that they were entering what would be a loveless exchange, and now you're joining a secret society. This is going bad places. I mean, I know where it goes, but it's going bad places. Okay.
I had a friend in college. He did a lot of art and improv, and he wrote a play partially inspired by my situation. The title was Sex, Drugs, and Existentialism. And so I went deep, as a neuroscience kid. I ended up designing a lot of my own chemicals, let's call it. And so I had a lot of fun just, playing around with neurochemistry and how different things could alter brain states. And so I had a lot of fun. I was like, this is what America is. Yeah. And so I ended up joining a Jewish secret society. It was quite a bit of fun. And we had recently purchased a new mansion, a historic one. And so I was like, hey, we should celebrate this. So I hosted a party there and invited the whole town. Well, just like a couple hundred people.
Just a couple. That's amazing. This was not my experience in university, by the way, but I do like hearing vicariously through others. But let me ask you, obvious question, Khan, you're Muslim of faith?
Born and raised.
All right. And so now it's a Jewish society, but quite clearly then you don't have to be Jewish to join the society.
Yeah, I was one of the only folks that was not Jewish in its entire history. I think Cory Booker was a non-Jewish member, the senator from New Jersey.
Oh yeah, that's
and
you're not in good company with Cory. That's not the one you want to have. Okay.
Look, we have quite a number of alumni, and so they let me in.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a good kid.
And so, it's fantastic. This is going to make a movie one day. So it's a Halloween party, senior year. You're a member of a Jewish secret society.
Right.
A couple hundred people at a house party in a mansion that was acquired by the secret society.
Right.
And then what happens?
Yeah, and so I had convinced the rabbi, one of the rabbis in the who was a member of the Shabtai, back then named Eliezer, society. That, hey, because he was very anti-celebrating Halloween because it's a
pagan holiday. It's actually one of the only ones that the religious Jews refuse to celebrate.
Right. And so the trick I did was I was like, well, actually, we're celebrating Havdalah. And Havdalah was, it coincided that night. And so I was like, hey, we're actually celebrating Havdalah. And I titled the thing Challah Wings Party. And I was like, that was the trick. And the rabbi was like, yeah, that makes sense. And so I sent out invitations for Challah Wings Party. And it was like, it's not Halloween, it's Challah Wings. That's I got away with it.
Well, I say, there's no cosmic anything here. You got away with the party, but the party was the starting point of a lot of misery. So the party happens. Right. And look, I'll skip some of it. The girl is not someone you only meet that night. It's a girl that you had known beforehand.
Yeah. I had known her from beforehand. We lived 20, 30 feet from each other. We had similar student jobs at the dining hall. She had taken a class with my open relationship girlfriend the summer before. We were in the same dormitory, lived close by, and we were flirting with each other for quite a bit, as I was flirty with many other girls. And we decided to have dinner that night. It was I think Saturday night or something. She came to my party that I was hosting, the Challah Wings. Totally not Halloween. It was Havdalah.
It's fantastic.
and then I had many other tickets. I was also the ticket guru where I wouldn't scalp the tickets, but I was like smart enough to like buy 20 or plus tickets for the symphony orchestra, and then I knew that the day of there would be tons of folks who wanted the tickets, so I would literally sell it to them for the bare basic price that I purchased them, like just neutral, so no profiting. But I would cash in on the social cachet of oh, at the time of need, at the last few hours, he showed up with tickets, and I was like, yep. And so I would have like 20 plus tickets, and this girl wanted to go with me, and so we went to the symphony orchestra show, sold out, and we end up in her room later on, and we have sex, and she was mesmerized. She wanted a relationship. Um, she did,
may I
yeah,
stop you there?
of course.
First time that you have had relations with this particular woman?
Sexual, yes.
Yes. Okay, fine. All right. So it wasn't like there was no pre-experience. This was the first.
I mean, we had kissed before,
Okay.
but nothing sexual.
Okay.
I
So
mean, like,
first
it
time,
was,
and
yeah,
then I guess it becomes clear that she was expecting something different, and when that didn't occur, something different, a reimagination of what had happened occurred.
yeah. I mean, so um, uh, the night of, when we had sex in the morning, she slapped me, and she was like, "Hey, why did we have sex if we weren't going to be in a relationship? We should have kept this between us." She just wanted things to be kept between us so that others do not find out, because she didn't want to be known as one of the girls who slept with that
Mm-hmm.
guy, especially within her friends circle. And so we're like, okay, let's just not tell each other. So we agreed, and we even texted back and forth about it. And I was like, also, let's talk about this over breakfast. Like, there seems to be like, stuff that needs to be fleshed out. And so we agreed to go have breakfast together. And I went to my room because I had, slept over at hers. And I went to my room to charge my phone and, sleep for like an hour or two, and then go have breakfast with her.
I have to ask
Go
this
for it, go for
question.
it.
I don't want to, but
Go
I'm
for it.
not gonna. Was she a virgin?
No,
Okay, fine. So that is only to
no.
understand how this might have been.
We're both seniors. She's I can't
No,
say
forget that. I
her
don't want.
background, but
I don't want
yeah,
to know more
she's
than
not
that.
a
It's,
virgin.
yeah, just a question of what might explain why this could have been something much more of a an
Yeah,
emotionally meaningful experience. Okay. All
yeah,
right, so it's clear then the different expectations of where this was going, but not as
right,
relates to the consent for the event itself.
right.
How does that day end, and
Yeah,
how does
so
it end in rape accusations?
right, and so we decided to have breakfast, and I went to sleep, and I was supposed to wake up and go with her. I kept getting calls from apparently my captain. He's like yelling at me saying, "Get your ass over here, get to the stadium." I had totally forgotten. I was so much in party mode, at being a host and doing all the logistics of making sure the party goes well. I had forgotten that I had a cricket game that Sunday morning, and against Harvard, and so I had to run to get to the stadium, get on the bus, and so on. And I text the girl like, "Sorry to ditch on you. I can't have breakfast." So I ditched on her, and later on we found out at the criminal trial, her friends came over to her room, and they were asking questions, and so some of them said, "Hey, we saw you with Saif last night, and you guys were kissing and intimate and touchy," and she was like, "No, no, no, I was not with him," and she's just trying to make sure that people don't find out that we had
Hmm.
sex. And then another girlfriend of hers sees condoms in the trash, and so sorry, there's like somebody upstairs, and so they see condoms in the trash, and they ask her like, "Hey, did you have sex with him?" And she was like, "No, it was all him. I didn't do anything. It was I didn't have sex with him. He had sex with me." And they're like, "That sounds like rape." And
This is
so
incredible, and I say like this has got to be embarrassing, but you've already done this in a court of law, so this is, I mean,
right,
maybe it's you're desensitized to this. I mean, and it's also not that embarrassing. So That's how it. Okay, sorry. So she says
Mhm.
there's condoms in the garbage, which is an indication of something, not
Right,
necessarily rape.
right.
And then okay, go
And
on.
so she at that point, to, I guess, out of shame, out of a desire to not take any of her responsibility, because it was a joint decision to have this. She says she had no, intention of having sex. It was all him. And so just puts all the blame on me, and her friends interpret it for her as like, well, that sounds like rape. And so they push that idea of rape, and then immediately they set up a meeting with a sex therapist, a huge feminist, who then says, this is absolutely horrible, one of the worst things I've heard, you've clearly been taken advantage of, this was rape. And
Is she saying because she was drunk or under the influence, or just
she
totally non-consensual?
so 20ish or so minutes before her friends, she had gone to the nurse saying that it was completely consensual and she just wants plan B. She went to the nurse getting plan B, and the nurse noted down that, a girl comes in, says she had consensual sex and wants plan B, for risk of like STDs and pregnancy and so on. And I think she like sought out also other drugs for STDs.
Mhm.
And to an official, she had said consensual, but then her friends, when they found out and they saw the condoms in the trash can, they pushed the idea of, well, this wasn't your doing, and she played along with it, because she couldn't, tell her friends that, oh, actually we both did it, because then she would, come off as like a
No.
slut,
Well,
like me.
I'm seeing, like, just as you tell the story, some similarities between the whole Russell Brand thing, where you have a person. I didn't know actually of your promiscuity, but you can see how someone says, "Well, now I don't want to be associated with having had this
Right,
experience, and so how
right,
do I absolve myself of
right.
responsibility?" All right, so her friends are in there, and then I mean, how quickly, how soon, at what point does she go to the police?
Right. So she doesn't go to the police. She goes to the sex therapist, who initiates this entire new bureaucracy. So October 26th of that year, the university came out with new rules, Title IX rules, because they were pressured, forced by the Department of Education and the federal government at large to really, really strongly, take care of crime on campus, especially rape.
Hmm.
And so October 26th, they come out with new regulations, and I'm their first guinea pig. And so they apply it on me. And so then they, initiate police investigation, with the Yale police. They initiate a Yale Title IX investigation. They initiate deportation proceedings. They issue an emergency suspension against me. And so it's just like, immediately, it's not the girl who did this. She's now just following orders of the Yale administrators, telling her, go to the police here, tell them this, do this thing. And like an entire machine just kicked into gear. It wasn't her on her own volition doing all these things.
Jeez, Louise, that's almost like I analogize everything. It's to movies or The Simpsons. The episode of The Simpsons when Bart makes the lie about the kid in the whale, and then the whole city mobilizes, and then he's so far into this lie, he's got no choice but to perpetuate it.
Right.
They initiated deportation proceedings.
Yeah, so I mean, I was brought to America on an F1 student visa, and so I mean, I'm not American. I don't have residential residency rights, and so Yale is supposed to inform the Department of Homeland Security, specifically the department within it, ICE, Immigration and Custom Enforcement, that some students are no longer students. Let's say somebody escapes, like say they come here as a student and then just stop attending school and go elsewhere. So the school is supposed to inform them. What the school told them is saying, oh, we put them on an emergency suspension. He's accused of these crimes, and to initiate deportation proceedings. And we will have the Yale police having him in custody because we have issued an arrest warrant. They put $100,000 bail against me. And so the Yale police had an arrest warrant. And so they informed ICE that he'll be in custody so that they could then kick me out.
All of this happens within how much time of the incident itself?
Right. So that's something that will be fleshed out in the civil lawsuit discovery. I don't have insight into the discovery stuff. Like I don't know what the specific steps that occurred were. Um, uh, uh, so overall, it to me it was out of the blue. It was a sudden shock. Yesterday I'm worrying about midterms and what to do for my thesis, and and what to do for like post graduation. Um, and now they gave me 30 minutes to pack up and leave. And this isn't even because of a result of an investigation. This was merely on the strength of a 3-sentence email that she didn't even write. It was written by an administrator for her to then be sent to the administrator himself. And so it was the entire procedure, this machine went into action on the strength of a 3-sentence email.
All right, and I mean, and go through what happens after this. I mean, so they
Yeah.
immediate suspension. I mean, you get arrested, detained, incarcerated
Yeah.
post bail. Like,
So they gave me 30 minutes to pack up and leave. And so I find myself on the street with 2 suitcases, whatever I could quickly pack up, and just the important stuff. Months later, I had a friend go into my room and then pack up stuff for me and take it. So I'm on the street, and it's cold November, and I'm hungry, and my phone is out of charge, and I'm in shock, and I just got kicked out, and the police are gonna find me, and plethora of issues, and I don't have a place to sleep, and so I go up to a bridge, Q Bridge in New Haven, and I didn't know how to swim back then. I almost jumped. It was just a lot suddenly.
This is
Yeah.
nuts. So they say 30 minutes. Get out. You're suspended. I mean, or expelled. What date is this? So the incident is on or about October.
I don't recall the date.
Not the exact date. Is this within a week? Within 3 days? Within
Yeah, like a week or so. Yeah.
Jeez. And I'm just Googling this as you're talking. Yale police officers have the same standing and powers as officers of the New Haven Police Department, including complete authority to apprehend or arrest anyone involved in illegal acts on campus
Right.
and throughout the city. Holy shit.
So they're fucking deputized, and this part like really pisses me off, and like it's structurally a wrong thing on an abstract philosophical level and just a practical matter. They are deputized and given all the constitutional powers that a regular police force does, but they're hired, promoted, and fired, and given instructions and so forth from the university. So they get to wield the power of the government as a private corporation. They get to do that, and they can direct the energies of the police force against anybody or for anybody, and it's their own fiefdom that they have carved out jurisdictionally. And so it is horrendous.
Holy crap. So you're out. You have your briefcase and it's not in any whimsical way contemplating jumping off a bridge. You don't. What do you do next? How do you get a lawyer? Where do you find a place to stay? Do you contact your parents? Like, what the heck?
I went to McDonald's. I had $94 in my bank account, and I went to McDonald's, charged my phone, and ate a burger, and went through my contact list. And then, I was Googling, what is a lawyer? Because I was a science kid. I didn't know laws. I didn't know crime, because I didn't have a thing with it. I was Googling Title IX. I was Googling everything, and I just went through my contact list. And one thing that I really am proud of myself by senior year that I had done was I had helped quite a number of local New Haven families and people in general. And I called a family saying like, hey, I don't have a place to stay. And they're like, where are you? We'll pick you up right now. And so I just ended up staying with them. And I called up others saying like, hey, I need to figure out a way to bond myself out of jail. And people pitched in. And within 24 hours, I had an attorney. I had a response ready to send to Yale. I had, Googled the intake process of going to prison so that I could like show up to the prison, to the jail directly, not prison, to jail directly, and say, here I am. I have a warrant against me. and no shoes with laces and stuff like that. Um, and I had bondsmen ready, and I uh, had an attorney ready, just rapidly responding to solving problems. And so the police keep me there anyway for 8 hours, even though I bonded out within 15 minutes. They were just waiting for ICE to get there and get me out. And so, because it was, I think, like a weekend or so, they couldn't keep me unnecessarily, especially since I have bonded out, because it's illegal to, I think, do that over 24 hours or so.
Yeah,
And so,
tell that to the January Sixers, not to change the politics of this, but yeah, sorry, I had to
and
say
so,
that.
so as soon as they let me go, I just got out of Dodge. I was like, get the fuck out of here. And so, and then it just became this journey of like, what just happened? Because
Well,
because to me it was like, just I just had sex. This was just another Saturday night. This was like a normal thing. There was nothing out of the blue. What is going on? And it
and
just
you're out of school now. Like your
right,
year is over.
right. My everything is over, and Yale is not responding to anything appropriately, uh, 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 and I'm now fighting criminal charges, and the severity is dawning on me that, oh, I'm looking at 40 plus years. And the Yale police had put on every level of the rape charges, just to get me with something.
Wow. All right. You bond. You get out on bond. You're out of school, so forget education. What are you going to do for money? And how quickly do you schedule a trial?
Right. And so this trial was scheduled 2 years later. And a lot of it was to do with just pre-trial motions and such. There was actually one of the things that I guess makes things arduous and long, but not so bad for me, is that I like to fix things as I go through things. In Connecticut, in pre-trial motions, you'd have these conferences between the judge, the prosecution, the defense. They also would have a seat at the table for the complaining party. And we argued, why is her attorney here? This is State of Connecticut v. Khan, not her versus me. She's a witness, sure. And so it took a few months, but we actually successfully uh, uh, got a motion passed, which then other criminal defense attorneys also started replicating, which was, these folks should not be a party to this. And so I like to fix these structural things. And so um, trial was supposed to start like October 16, 2017, like 2 years later. And yeah, we go through jury selection, and trial is starting on the 16th or so. And 5 minutes before they're sworn in, prosecution's office folks, like low-level folks, come into the courtroom. They burst in with bags, trash bags of notes they found that the Yale police had destroyed, and parts that they still hadn't yet destroyed. And a good chunk of them was exculpatory. And a mistrial was declared. And so the judge was furious. The prosecutor was profusely apologizing, saying, like, look, I had nothing to do with this. This was all Yale police. I did nothing here. I'm so sorry. Because it was a Brady v. Maryland violation to not hand over every piece of exculpatory evidence, or even just normal evidence, to the defense. And so a mistrial was declared. And, well, the judge asked me, like, Mr. Khan, it's up to you. Do you want to go through with it now or delay it? And naive me said, well, I'll just delay it. And so I pushed it to February.
But was it good? This was in front of the jury that all this happened.
5 minutes before they were sworn in.
Okay, so okay.
That jury was dismissed.
And now, hold on just one second. So this is 2 years later. In those 2 years, you're not in school. Are you working? Like, what are you doing with your life until?
So I ended up. So one of the companies I had at that point, before the accusation, was I was providing strategic communication services to the Pentagon. on counterterrorism efforts. ISIS was a big deal in 2013, 14, and 15, and so on. And so a couple of friends of mine and folks from the military, colonels, we decided to create our own shop, selling services to the Pentagon and getting good, lucrative, Pentagon money. DoD is just flush with cash, and I was like, I want some. And so, like, look, I'm a curious kid. I wanted to build a little empire, and so that stuff failed. I did ending up with a different company, getting a contract with Fort Knox, training Marines in some of these summer projects on linguistic terrain, and I also went to the Bay Area to do a startup. And I had also, for immigration stuff, I filed for an asylum application, saying like, hey, don't send me back to Afghanistan. They will kill me because of X, Y, and Z reasons, like actual important
Yeah.
salient reasons. And so that stuff is still pending. And it's stupid how I'm waiting in line. I'm not breaking any laws. I'm not breaking any rules. And being in line has not been serving me at all. Like, it takes so much chutzpah, I guess, or not even chutzpah. Just it annoys me to no end how just being in line, you know, I'm slow. Where literal people who are like illegally crossing over, they
It
get
is the squeaky wheel gets the oil, but the flip side to that expression is the nail that sticks up gets the hammer.
right.
So in the meantime, you're trying to work, but you're out of Yale. You're not.
Yeah,
What's the girl or what's the accuser doing?
yeah.
You have no
So
communications with her, I presume, for those 2 years. But what's she up to?
so she had failed physics beforehand, and she got easy grades because at Yale, if you go through a traumatic experience like rape, you get easy A's and you get easy everything else. And she, I think I can say this stuff. She went to medical school using my story, and so she talked about like how
Okay. Yeah,
right, and so
this became well, actually, it's known on campus who like she's known on campus, although she's anonymous in these proceedings until you get to sue for defamation.
right,
Okay,
right.
and so this became something of a, interesting, something of a not a crutch, rather, but okay, very interesting.
Right. So she in the meantime is she finished her schooling and reaped a ton of benefits from Yale. I cannot disclose stuff related to whether Yale gave her anything or not. I'll let the audience surmise. And so she went to medical school and so on. And this entire time, I'm just waiting on stuff. And so I attempted to create a startup. I love being an entrepreneur. And so I was in the Bay Area trying to start a company. And then I was supposed to have a trial. It's like, hey, you have a trial in 6 months. And so when we get to that point, then it's like, oh, it's delayed another 2 months. Oh, it's delayed another 2 months. And so I couldn't do anything related to the startup because every time, because it takes a whole effort to, you know, break the lease, uh, get out of California, and just go to Connecticut and focus on the trial. And
Mm.
so once, I think like the second last or third last time, I was like, okay, this needs my full time attention. So I just went there and I just focused on it, and yeah, and so trial got delayed, and this was then now at the height of Me Too.
So, how many years was it between the accusation or the being arrested and the actual trial? 3 years.
The actual trial and accusation, 2 years and 3.5 months.
Okay. And the bags of exculpatory notes
Yeah,
that Yale had destroyed or concealed. What sort of information was in that?
right. So there
Yeah.
were there were notes in there where the administrators and the police had passed to each other saying, "It's from Afghanistan. Violence is accepted there. He must have done it." Verbatim.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so they wanted to hide that stuff. And there was quite a few other things that they wanted to hide. And so we went to trial, and people think that I won the trial because America is misogynistic or sexist or so on and so forth. I won because I had DNA evidence. I had CCTV camera evidence. I had text messages evidence. I had cellular location evidence. I had card swipe going in and out of buildings evidence. And my testimony and just other hard evidence. Like, that girl exaggerated and extremely just made shit up, just lied
Well,
on so many
you
things.
say like you think you would have been, you got or found not guilty because America's misogynist. Dude, I would have said you would have been convicted. I can give 5 reasons. Yes, Afghan refugee from a part of the world where people have certain preconceived notions, where there might be, and I don't know what
Right.
race the woman is, but it doesn't even matter. But so how long did the trial last?
So the trial itself was, I think, 2.5. Sorry, no, it was like 9, 10 days.
Okay.
Yeah, and
And
and and
the most
yeah,
damning pieces of I know what they are, but you tell everybody
sure,
the most damning pieces of contradictory evidence or
right.
not self incrimination, but what's it called, impeachment of the principal claimant or the accuser.
Right.
What was that?
Yeah. So there were, before I get to the accuser, a few salient things about my side of the story was I shut the hell up. I did not tell the police anything. I did not tell Yale anything because one thing on an abstract level and a practical level, I just naturally just understood it. Like, look, I'm not going to tell these folks who are trying to put me in prison my side of the story because they're smart and this is their job and they're going to adjust something so that they make it look better for the jury. And so I spoke for the first time on trial, and the problem was I was sitting on all this hard evidence, and meanwhile the media, New York Times, Yale Daily News, BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, they are trashing me. They're talking about how guilty I am or how horrible I am. And I had to stay silent because, at the risk of providing the hard evidence, you know, people could change their story. And I got super lucky. The girl goes up on the stand and denies having sent me text messages of flirting and Shakespearean sonnets and just romantic this and meeting up with me and and texting her friends that I'm fine, I'm just with somebody and stuff like that. And she's like, "Oh, that was all him. Oh, I never even wanted to ever see him." Her testimony, verbal testimony, is I never ever wanted to see him. I was actually frankly scared of him. I never wanted to ever get close to him. When in fact we're flirting, we're like having dinner. She's coming to my party. I mean, like on campus, there's like, I don't know, 100 parties that night. It's Halloween. She's coming to my party. She's going to the orchestra with me. We're going to her room together. And she's like, I drank rum. There was no rum at the party. This was a Havdalah party. And the only way I could convince the rabbi was if there was only grapevine. And there was like beer, grape wine and beer. And she's like, oh, I drank this much rum. There was no fucking rum anywhere to be found. She says, "Oh, the rape happened at these hours." I was not even in the same building. I was actually out looking for her friend. That she was like, "Hey, I need to. Can you like do a recon mission? Like, go find her." She didn't say recon mission, but she was like, "Hey, I've lost my friend. Can you go find her?" And so in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, recon mission." And like, and so I'm a naive kid. Like, it's weird. Like the variables that I inhabit, and so she says the rape happened in these hours. I'm not in the same building. And she, for example, says, oh, yeah, from the orchestra to the room, she was falling over and I was dragging her. And like she kept falling all the time. And she was drunk and she was like asleep. And I was like pulling her. And then the camera shows I'm like joking. I'm like just, the way I am right now here. And I'm like trying to impress the girl. Like, I'm a boy. I'm a boy trying to impress the girl, and she's laughing. She's walking unaided. Sometimes, like once every 30 seconds or 40 seconds, I'm like holding her on her lower back, like romantically. And it's like there's nothing what she's said is shown, and like she completely disregards the messages she sent later, the morning after. She disregards her friend's testimony, and she on the stand pretends to be like goody goody two shoes. She's like, oh, I've never drank alcohol before. I don't go partying, and I can say this part. No, I'm sorry, I cannot say that part because that would
I don't want to get you in trouble. So
of course.
okay.
I have to be careful because it's an ongoing civil suit, and so I have to make sure where the perimeters are. And so she, her friends, we impeached. We casually asked the friends on the stand, saying, "Oh, you know her? Do you party with her?" Like, "Yeah, we party every weekend." "Oh, do you drink together?" Like, "Yeah, we drink all the time." And so it's like her own testimony is like that she doesn't drink, and then it's also other stuff like, oh yeah, I've never had sex for 6 months before the incident. She had not had sex for 6 months before, and that was also only in a committed relationship with her ex-boyfriend. And after the incident, the nurse was female, the person who took her to the nurse was female, everybody involved was female, and the DNA report from the state of Connecticut expert witness says, yeah, there were male DNA found all over her body, in particular in her anal swabs.
And
so
let me say, not your DNA.
not mine. So mine was found in the places where I said we had sexual contact, because I was like, look, this is what we did. That's where my DNA was found, and there was non-Saif male DNA, and the expert witness testified multiple times that yes, this is not Saif's DNA, it's other DNA, and it is guaranteed male DNA, XY chromosomes, and so on.
I'll ask the question. DNA is not being used interchangeably with sperm. This could be saliva or other tissue.
No, it is sexual. It is sperm male DNA.
Okay, everybody knows that I have a massive fear of STD. I mean, okay, this is so there's okay, and do they know if it's one other person or multiple other males?
So there was a little tactic we did at trial where we didn't delve into it. Who knows? It could be a friend, could have been a gangbang, could have been who has any fucking idea?
Yeah, bottom line is someone else's, and how long would that DNA remain testable for? Within like a week or?
I'm not an expert on that.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, because I'm just also like the proximity of that DNA to yours.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, with the temporal aspect. Look, it's. I'm sorry for being crass, but I guess it's an anus, so stuff goes out of it on a daily basis. So people poop, and in that excretion process, you'd expect the DNA to be expelled recently. Yep. And so I'm going to assume that it is, I guess, fresh.
Okay.
I'm sorry for being crass, but
don't worry. This is a different world for me. All right. So that the DNA of other at least another man, not yours.
Yes.
At trial. And now
at least one man. Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's that. How long does she testify for at the criminal trial?
So she kept screwing herself over. I think she testified for 2 days.
Wow. Okay.
Because she just kept lying about all sorts of things.
All right. I guess the most stunning contradictions would be a number of things, but the DNA of other men. Did she explain why she went to get the test or go to the nurse shortly after the encounter?
Yeah. So she knew me as, I guess, a sexually promiscuous person. So she just, I guess, wanted to protect herself from STDs and pregnancy and so on. She did seem weirder than other girls I had been with, because she made me wear a condom for a blowjob, which I had never done. But I can conceptually understand it, because it's you can have some STDs orally, but it's the chances are it's frankly silly. But I was like, okay, blowjob's about blowjob. I was just a horny college kid.
Okay, and then so all the evidence comes down. You testify. I'd say quite clearly whether or not Well, your testimony probably comes off a little more compelling and a little more evidentiary based.
Right.
You get acquitted. Oh, not, well, it's acquitted. You get found not guilty. How long did
Right.
they deliberate for?
So they deliberated for about 3-ish hours,
Okay.
and I could hear them 45 minutes, an hour into the deliberation, laughing, just roaring laughter. And then I was like, yeah, nobody's going to condemn a man to prison if they're laughing about it. They would be at least somber, and
All right. So you're found not guilty.
right,
Testify like vindication. What do you
right.
do next as relates to Yale? Do you go back to Yale now and say, "Let me back in," and you've got some explaining to do?
Well, the next funny thing that happens isn't something that I do. It's something that Yale Daily News does. And it was the funniest part to me in this entire saga. And by the way, when I say funny and I use these words like funny, it's a mental defense that I do for myself. 'Cause
Outrageous. It's outrageous what they did. I think I know. Yeah.
right. I
Okay.
euphemistically say funny because it's like a way for me to dull down the anger and the annoyance and the sadness and the hurt and the harm. It's a self mental defense where because it's fucking horrendous. So what the Yale Daily News did the next day. So March 7th, I'm found not guilty. My innocence is continued to be presumed, just as every human, in according to the American Constitution, is innocent until proven guilty. Yale Daily News says, not guilty.
Not.
Not guilty. And they're saying, well, just because a court of law says you're not guilty doesn't mean in reality you're not guilty. We still think you're guilty.
Safe. Just because I come prepared. I think is this it? Yeah, this is it right here.
Yeah,
Not,
there you go.
not guilty. Nijrenberg. Amelia Nijrenberg says, yesterday Saifullah Khan was
She
acquitted
worked
of.
at the New York Times because of this stuff, by the way.
Well, we'll read this later. So they say you were acquitted, but that does you're guilty until proven innocent, and then guilty even after proven innocent. I've been saying this for a while.
It
So
was
what
funny. Like, look, it's just jarring to me.
I'm going to
It's
give
like-
everybody that link now. They got to read this. Okay.
And so they're calling the jurors old and so on. And then I wonder if it was this article where one of the jurors is then fighting Amelia and other commentators, saying like, look, I looked at the evidence and this kid is innocent. There's a juror commenting on like public articles saying like, we looked at the evidence, the kid is just innocent. She lied.
I got to bring this up, actually. No, we need to see this now in real time. Let me, my eyes are very bad. Readmitting Khan would be a grievous mistake, as using legal standards of not guilty to not apply in a private community like Yale. The legal acquittal does not mean innocence. It does not mean that Khan did not engage in deeply dubious sexual. Oh my goodness! It just means that the jury could not find that the sexual behavior was, in their eyes, rape. Yeah, that's called innocent. Okay, so now they say this. They write this preemptively. Were you asking or seeking readmission the entire time?
So I guess they were. I don't know. Largely, I mean, I don't know what's going on in the minds of these bureaucrats and these sex police and honestly perverts. And so, yes, I was seeking readmission, but not the next fucking day. I think I sent an email to them like a few weeks later, like a month later. I was like, hey, like by September, can I like come back to school? Like, I came here to get a degree in cognitive neuroscience. Like, let me drink some water.
Yeah. No, it's just amazing. You've ruined my life for the last 2 years. You were expelled, persona non grata. The scholarship that they promised you, I presume they withdrew. Did they ask for reimbursement of the monies that they had already advanced to you?
No, they were not. They were not.
They were not that bad. And so now you say, can I come back? I don't know why you would ever want to go back, but I mean, it might be more difficult to get into another school. But
I mean, I couldn't get into another school properly because I have to leave the country, apply, and then come back in. But like,
holy shit! Yeah, this is a nightmare. This is a nightmare.
Right. And so like, despite excuse me, avoiding prison, I'm now in an open air prison in America. Although I don't consider it as a prison. I love the
Well,
nation. It's a fantastic
no, no,
nation.
we know what you mean. Your
Right.
options are severe. Your freedoms are severely limited, or your
Right.
options.
Yeah. It's like, and so, yeah. And I actually offered right then to Yale, sent them a letter saying like, look, I'm willing to bury the hatchet. I'm willing to offer an olive branch. I will sign any weird, stupid document you want me to sign, signing away my rights and so on. Just let me get the degree. Let me get in, finish the degree, the thing I came to America to start. I got, sidetracked and hurt by this thing. And simultaneously, there is a 77,000 petition against me, signed
Wow.
by that many people, saying Yale should not readmit him. And they had comments on there saying things like Saif Khan should be shoved into a bathroom and raped 100 times, and all of his bones should be broken, his entire family should be murdered, um, and all sorts of just nasty, horrendous stuff. People calling me a sand nigger and like all sorts of crap. And I read,
77
yeah,
77,000 signatures. Did they have to be Yale students, or could it be anybody
no, no,
from?
no.
Okay.
It was the internet, but the Yale students were commenting all over on the very platform that I created, the Overheard at Yale, which I had like relinquished platform. I was like secretly looking. People were saying nasty stuff about me. The stuff is still up, a lot of it. And yeah, the Yale students, there was constant media uproar against me, just not happy with me, potentially coming back. And Yale did let me come back because legally they had to.
Hmm.
Um, and then they did their kangaroo court and expelled me anyway,
Okay, so
saying,
hold on. That went fast. So they let you back in next September, like the beginning of the next school
yeah.
year.
So
You,
they technically let me back in like June ish, and they put their best teams on trying to make find something to get me out on. They couldn't, like, so I had given them like all the hard evidence saying like, hey, look, here's stuff that we have acquired from the criminal trial. I'm not guilty. And so I even gave them the 1,800 pages trial transcript. And they took, I guess, just months to then redact like 900-ish pages of that trial transcript. Stuff where the judge and the prosecutor and like the girl is talking, anything that looked bad on Yale or the girl, they just blacked out. They just redacted. And so they tailored, it took them months and months until they could like it, they disregarded their rape kit that Yale had taken. The rape kit said there was zero signs of rape, and all of the evidence they just disregarded, and then very narrowly tailored, and that took them a very long time. And then they said, "Well, we think you're guilty," and then they expelled me. And they put up
they
these
expelled you after readmitting you,
right,
after your finding of not
right,
guilty.
right.
Did I?
They wanted
I don't know where I read this, but I did read it. Someone else had accused you of something bad, right? A guy.
right. So it was another made up crap. And so one thing that was crazy about that summer was I was accused by like 20 people at that point. And so it was people like, oh yeah, I, met him freshman year and he was dubious. I want him expelled. I was in an elevator with him. I felt deeply uncomfortable.
These
I would like
mother.
to file a Title IX complaint. Can you stop? And so it was just a ton of just random people saying stuff. And that particular person that you brought up was somebody that wanted a lot of fame. And so they wanted to get in on this aspect. And I don't want to get too much into it because it goes into the civil suit. Um, One of the things that was really annoying to deal with was the amount of harsh and bad attention I was receiving because this was right at the height of Me Too. And so Time Magazine, New York Times, BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, LA Times, all sorts are talking about me. And so I'm getting, girls sending me nudes and girls sending complaints against me and all sorts of attention from all sorts of crazy humans from the woodworks came out. And so again, I was a naive kid, and so it's just a shit ton of crazy,
Well,
weird.
I mean, it's I mean it's the unspoken sort of like the catalyst. They all it becomes its own movement, so to speak. But
Right,
they let you back in. You actually go back for classes the next year, starting September, whatever,
right.
August, September, and at the same time as this 77,000 signature petition, they're trying to get you out. You're getting a slew of other random
Right.
accusations. I don't feel safe with them around. And then
He's
what
in
do
the
they?
dining hall with me. He looked at me.
And so
He
they conduct their own internal investigation around what
Right.
time?
It took them all these months, and so they were trying to make the perfect case against me. And the perfect case meaning they had to delete everything that was exculpatory. And so, like, if you look through my case file, it's like, holy shit, this is a horrendous, situation that this person who's innocent. But like, if you take months to delete all that part, and you just carefully, you know,
No, you don't need to describe. We know how easy that is. I mean, they could take something one statement out of context, so that they. But now this internal investigation is going on before you go back to classes after they've admitted
so
you.
so both during classes and before it just took
Okay.
them months and months.
And are
And
you? I think I know of the hackery of this, but are you invited to participate in this inquiry? Do they let you know what's going on?
So they're not. They're just inviting me to be present at the hearing where I'm given a couple of minutes to talk and defend for myself. My lawyer's not allowed to talk. My lawyer's not allowed to ask questions. There's like no thing that I could do. So I just have a couple of questions. So I read the Invictus poem, and I said some statements in defense of myself. And I, because like it's just absurd. Like they took all these months to do all these things, and they disregarded every piece of hard evidence I provided, and they weren't willing to take in any witness, and they didn't allow me to even see the accuser, and they didn't allow me to ask any questions through my attorney and so on. And like the Supreme Court even said that Mr. Khan's attorney was rendered as a potted
A
plant.
potted plant. But okay, so they do this whole thing. I mean, to call it a kangaroo court. It's a sham. They
Right.
want you out. They've concocted this. They've crafted it. They invite you back. You go back in September.
Right.
When do they expel you again once and for all or for good?
So because of a lot of campus pressure around October, they say, hey, they call me. The general counsel calls me saying, look, there's a ton of campus pressure. Why don't you take a medical leave?
Why
And I
don't
was
you
like,
go? Why don't you go f yourself? Like, why don't you piss off? Take a medical leave. Is that going to give me a? Okay, sorry. What did you
so
say? What did you say to that question?
I just simply said no. And then they said, well, you're put on an emergency suspension right now, effective immediately. And it was like deja vu again. It's like now you're suspended again.
But
And
now
so,
you have no recourse now legally because you've already been acquitted or found not guilty. So they say you're out. And
right. And then
okay,
a month, 2 months later, a month later, they hold a hearing where they invite me back and give me a few minutes to defend myself. But my lawyer's not allowed to talk. I can't ask questions. I can't do things. I can't submit things. And then 2 months later, around Christmas, they find me guilty. Sorry, they use the words responsible or not responsible, and the presumption never starts with innocence. The presumption starts with essentially believe the
guilt.
victim.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, and so then they expel me, and then I have the chance to appeal the expulsion,
All right, good luck with
and
that.
and
To whom do you appeal the expulsion? The institution itself.
right,
Okay.
right, and yeah, and so then I'm out on the streets. I mean, this time I also expected it. I was like, no way in hell Yale is going to let me win at their own game.
This is now if we're in December 2018.
Right,
Okay.
right,
And so you're out now and out for
right,
good.
right. And so then I take quite a few number of months to gather money and gather the conceptual idea of like, well, this is what happened. How do I go on the offensive? This entire time I've been on the defensive. And so by December of 2019, almost a year later, I've, because it's difficult to raise money, it's difficult to, which by the way, I would appreciate the audience if they share
Oh, what
their
is?
kind.
I'll find the
It's
go. You have a
the
Give
Give
Send Go.
Send Go Conv Yale Give Send Go.
Yep. Give Send
Yeah,
Go.
and so I raise some money. I conceptualize and I study the American legal system. Like, how does it work? Because I'm aggrieved.
This is the legitimate Give
Right.
Send Go right
Yes.
here. Okay.
Right. Right.
I'm going to share this with everybody while we're talking. Okay.
Yeah. And so it took me a while to figure out what's going on and how does one even attack. Like, what do you do when an institution older than America, $40+ billion in endowment, with their hands in the, I mean, they control the local police. They have control over a significant chunk of Connecticut. You know how college towns, have college where they have a significant impact on the economy. Yale has a
Dude, I'm seeing similarities between this case and the Oberlin case that didn't end well
yes,
for
the
Oberlin.
Gibson
So
Gibson Gibson
the
Baker,
Gibson
yeah.
Bakery. Yep.
Right. And so, the New York Times reporter who reported on that story also wrote about me a few weeks ago. And so, Vimal Patel. And so, what's it took me a while, and I think I got the right concept on. I sued the university, I sued the girl, and I sued the administrators involved, all the way to the president and the deans.
And now it's defamation
Right.
among other claims. I
Right.
think the number is 110 million.
Right. Right.
I won't ask how you got there. It doesn't really matter. But I don't think there's enough money on earth to compensate for this destruction of your life.
Right.
So you sue them for defamation 2019. And
Right.
now, and I think I'm not wrong on the procedure. It gets dismissed they make a motion to dismiss on the basis of
Right.
sovereign immunity.
So the university, I have about 6 claims or so against the university and the administrators. They can't legally file anything to dismiss my claims, but the girl, uh, I can't say that part. So the girl then filed a 12b6, a motion to dismiss, saying, well, the Yale procedures were just like a regular court, and thus, because it is quasi judicial, she should get absolute immunity. She should, whether she has lied or not, she gets complete, absolute immunity for everything she has said and done. And the district court agrees with her, saying, well, for good public policy reasons, that seems appropriate. And so my
Wow.
claims against the girl get dismissed. That,
Okay.
it's good public policy because, there's a lot of rape victims out there. And so we should dismiss this case, whether it's genuine or not. It's just good, sound public policy. And so I appeal and I take it to the Second Circuit. A lot of people told me at that point to, let the girl go and just go after the university. They have the money anyway. And I'm like, no, this is just justice. This is important. She harmed me. And I appealed to the Second Circuit. And the Second Circuit largely agrees with me in 2022 March, but sends some certified questions to the Connecticut Supreme Court saying, like, hey, we don't know Connecticut law. Can you tell us, expound on these things? Like, what exactly is a quasi-judicial and what's considered quasi-judicial? The Connecticut Supreme Court comes back this summer, June 23, on the anniversary of Title IX, says Yale's procedures are, I'm not quoting verbatim, are just absolutely not quasi-judicial. They're missing an oath, they're missing cross-examination, and a plethora of other important things that we consider, as deeply important as part of a judicial process. Yale has none of those things. How can we possibly consider this quasi-judicial?
But it's so mind blowing. We want immunity because it's quasi judicial. We have and yet we run what is nothing more than a Kafka-esque kangaroo court sham of a proceeding to destroy your life after you've already been out for 2 years, gone through a criminal trial, and found not guilty. Saif, also I've supported now. L'chaim, Saif. This
Thank
is
you.
no, no. It's also I have to make sure I'm comfortable with something before promoting it to other people, and I like to put my own my money where my mouth
L'chaim and
is.
Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah, well, I should be streaming on Shabbat, but whatever. I'm one of the rule breakers. So so it initially gets tossed. They say she gets immunity because she's
Right.
participating in some sort of, I don't know, quasi judicial process. They say you appealed that decision to the appeals level of the Connecticut courts.
So I took it to the Second Circuit.
Yeah.
I've been having a fascinating journey through the legal system, just learning ins and outs of the criminal courts, the kangaroo courts, the federal courts, and now state courts. But as I've been going along, surprisingly, inadvertently, and to a degree, very intentionally, well, I guess, okay, not inadvertently, they keep putting up stupid obstacles in front of me and I keep beating them. And as I beat them, I create these national precedences that end up just sticking around forever. The New York Times, Huffington Post, and elsewhere trashed my image for a couple of years. But Khan v. Yale is history. That is not something Yale will ever be able to erase. That Supreme Court opinion is down in American history,
And
and
people
it
have to
shows that Yale was wrong.
well, and that they were wrong, that it was a laughable procedure.
Right.
Rendering your attorney a potted plant is such an amazing, I mean, it's an old analogy. Stuck in place, you can't talk, you can't walk, you can't do jack squat, you're an ornament. You're a trapped ornament.
And the Second Circuit may put Yale in a similar league as a criminal enterprise in their language. And because they were saying, well, if we give Yale quasi-judicial status, well, what about a criminal enterprise? I mean, like essentially a gang has their own procedures. They're applying their own, policies to their members and what they're doing. Should they be, given absolute immunity too?
I mean, so there have been some institutions that have asked for no oversight, no judicial oversight, but okay, amazing.
Yeah.
So the Second Circuit, and it's a devastating decision. They say,
Right.
ultimately they say yes, you can sue the accuser.
Oh,
You can sue.
so that last part, it's not finalized yet, and we're waiting on it any day now. It's imminent. I'm heavily waiting. Like the decision, the direction of the decision is already known. The Second Circuit, a federal court, cannot tell the state court what their state laws are. So we already know that it would be reversed and remanded to the district court. And so the girl will be back in the lawsuit, and the defamation claim and the tortious interference claim, they both survive. But the Second Circuit's final ruling is any day now, and it's three ladies writing it, and fantastic judges, and their language can shake up everything. These rulings in my case have already stopped Biden's regulations on Title IX, because Biden was saying, hey, these things should procedurally we should push for, like no cross-examination, no presumption of innocence, a much lower bar of preponderance of evidence, and so on. And the Connecticut Supreme Court says, like, if you have those things, you're not quasi-judicial at all, and you're open to being sued. And so the White House is like, oh shit, we should not do this. And so yeah.
It is mind blowing. I'm still blown away by the Yale police and their authority, and then this really reeks. I mean, it reeks of it has similarities to the Russell Brand story in nature and the Oberlin case in actions, because it was clear in Oberlin they made up their mind. They were
Right.
going to do everything they could to make that outcome come about.
Right.
They tortiously interfered. They defamed. Administration was involved in it. And it was just an absolute egregious injustice that took
Right.
years to remedy.
And Viva, there was this surreal feeling that I had when I was going through the kangaroo court at Yale, where I deep down I laughed. I was like, if I just jumped on this table and danced like a monkey, there would be absolutely no difference in the outcome. And the reason I thought that way was because there was literally no set of words, no set of actions that I could have done that would have persuaded these folks to decide in my favor. There was nothing that could convince them.
I'm gonna quote The Simpsons again. It's like Wiggum saying, "Well, the law can hurt you, but it can't help you. I'll be out in a few minutes." It's like there's nothing you could have done to render to get innocence. They could have more dance on the table like a monkey. They're going to say you're crazy. Clearly kick him out.
Right.
Man, so that's incredible. Who's your lawyer? It's Norm Pattis,
Yeah,
right?
he's Norm Pattis,
Yeah.
and he's done a few J6 stuff.
Dude,
Yeah.
we know Norm Pattis here. He represented Alex Jones. He represented the Jan Sixers. He's a good. I was watching him during Alex
I trust
Jones.
him blindly.
He's.
I will. He made me read Psalms 24, or was it 25? The one with the shepherd, and so for during the criminal trial, and that man is one of the few people in the world who I will close my eyes and he says walk 3 steps forward and I will do that. And so
It's phenomenal. I mean, so now as it stands, as it stands now, they've reversed the. You could sue the university. They've
Yes.
remanded it
Yeah.
to the original trial judge for what's the question that goes back to the original trial judge now?
so so the litigation of all the claims against the university, the administrators, the girl, and there are about 8 different claims. And the main claims I have against the university are just breach of contract, sorry, fairness, implied fairness, and negligent infliction of emotional distress, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and quite a few other claims. And I go into discovery, baby. And so
Oh my. Okay, if Yale has any lesson to be learned, it will be from Oberlin. And I know people who went to Oberlin who were mighty pissed off with Oberlin, where their annual donations were going. And so I don't want to ask. Well, no, I'll presume that they're open to discussions now because this shit has just taken a turn for the worse for them.
that direction I cannot discuss.
I would,
Like
yeah.
what the outcomes related to Yale and I and any of those sorts of talks. However, what I can really and I'm genuinely excited for is I'm going to dig deep. I will go through every little fucking document and I will personally read it. Sure, my attorneys will read it and the paralegals will read it and so on. I am personally showing up to every single deposition and I'm reading every single word and I am taking it all the way, slowly, methodically. And the first step that I'm going to do when I go down to district court and I'm filing a motion to remove her Jane Doe status so that I can then freely use her name and everybody can use it because it'll be publicly available.
Yep,
Because
the
the
judicial-
public has a right. I mean, the public has a right to know who the litigants are at the very least. And 2, she doesn't have any victim status. 3, the public has a right to know who false accusers are. What if it's somebody who's your neighbor? What if she's your doctor? What if she's your engineer? The public has a right to know this.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. I was going to say something. Oh, geez, I forgot what it was. There's Oh no. So meanwhile, your status in America in the meantime is what?
Just pending asylum case. It's just horrendous. It just waiting. I hate immigration has been worsened because it's like people who are genuinely waiting in line and don't want to break rules. We have it tough, but the people who are just crossing the border, they just get everything.
Well, I
hate it.
try to think of the more cynical side of things. If they failed on the criminal accusations, they've kicked you out of school and ruined your life there already.
Right.
But if they want to play dirty and try to make things even harder for you, okay. And now the next step for you, you're going to go to deposition if it gets there.
I will go through every email, every text message, every meeting they had, every deposition, and it's not just low folks. It's the president, it's the deans, it's the people involved. Everybody who was in the Kafkaesque nightmare against me, I'm getting to them.
It's amazing. It's got all the angles of the Oberlin, and it's taken the same direction and the same course. Saif, I don't think I could have possibly forgotten to ask you a question. Is there anything that you absolutely wanted to say that for some reason I forgot to ask? I think we got all the details out of the lawsuit.
Yeah, I think there's one element that people, I guess, don't get, and it's partially related to, I guess, even wearing the Yale hoodie, and it's related to how I feel about Yale. Ultimately, I want to make them get better. They are an American god, or an American titan, and we shouldn't be throwing out the baby with the bathwater. We should be get disinfecting the bureaucracy that has taken over these institutions and get those folks out. We don't destroy Yale. We punish it through large settlement awards. We punish it through governmental, oversight. We change out, the horrible ideologies that I don't want to get into politics. The various horrible ideologies that have infested and infected these universities. So ultimately, I actually love Yale because I want to fix it, and so I think that's something that's often lost.
It's an interesting perspective. I'm of the opinion that some of these institutions are too far gone. It's sort of like
Right.
the Nobel Peace Prize. Clean it up all you want. I will never regard it the same way that I once did.
Doesn't have any meaning.
Doesn't have anything. No meaning anymore. Someone, well, in the chat, I'll just read two Rumble
Please.
rants. Mandatory Carry says others are being forced to, as we speak, keep fighting. And Sean47 says, Viva, do you remember the CBC host who had 4 accusers? I think it was, I want to say Jan Gomeshi, but I'm not sure if it was him. Later, it was revealed that they had emailed each other to coordinate his destruction. After that, I no longer give as much weight to multi-accusers. So there's no question. I mean, we've seen the way it's sort of working out. Kavanaugh, Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk, Russell Brand. It's par for the course. You expose yourself to this, Saif, when you do bad things. I won't say bad things. You certainly increase your risks when you engage in certain behavior. Anyone comes up to me and says sexual misconduct, that's not going to be a plausible sticking point for me. And someone says, come back when there's an update. And if you will, Saif, please, I'd love to have you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to put the give, send, go in the pinned comment. I'm looking at locals to see if there's any questions here. Where is this young man living now? I may have missed it. You're in, I don't know if you can say, you're in Connecticut?
I don't want to give
Don't
away
forget
my location.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Just wanted to get one more question from here. And no, I think we've got it all. Saif, you stick around. We're going to talk for a couple minutes afterwards. The kids have been coming into the studio. But you're on Twitter? What's your handle?
Yeah, it's Saif__Khan. Like you have it.
Yeah, I have. I'm going to put it in there. So just when people listen to this and watch it later. Saif, SAIF__KHAN.
Yes.
Norm. That's what I want to get. Norm Pattis on.
He's fantastic.
I need it because I need to know the Alex Jones. We need to know the January 6th, and we're going to talk your case when there's okay, amazing.
He's brilliant.
He's fantastic, and he deals with judges, in a way that I couldn't. Patient, and he finds a way to mock their bias, like he did in that Alex Jones trial.
There's one important element on that part that I am so goddamn lucky with. Norm's down to earthness. He treated the judges with respect at every level that I've seen him. Yale's attorneys responded with hubris, bothered that the judges would even ask questions of him. You could see the tone and the hubris just oozing out. And honestly, those things help me so much when my opponents are stupid.
Yep. Stupid, arrogant, righteous. And above all else, it's the racial angle to this that also drives me nuts. It's like, oh yeah, well, this is Yale. They talk about institutionalized racism, and then they see it must be guilty. He's from Afghanistan. I mean, we know what they do down there. It's crazy. Saif, stick around. I'm going to end this with everybody. We'll talk for a few minutes, and then I can also let the kids come in and really bother me. Thank you very much. So I'm going to put your give, send, go in there, your Twitter handle, and we're going to follow up when there's news.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Peace out, everybody. See you all tomorrow, 6 o'clock for the Sunday stream. Peace, peeps.